And I want to share something briefly with you, and then I want to just have a time this morning. I just feel like the Lord wants to renewal. He wants to bring renewal and into our lives, expectancy. There's a passage, very interesting passage. I saw it from a whole different way, and it's in Ephesians 5. And it's funny because I love both of these. Ephesians 5, verse 14 through 18, or 18 through 19. I love the 14 through 17. I've always looked at it as talking about one thing, and 18 through 20 about something else, but they're actually obviously talking about one thing. Listen to what this says. He says in verse 14, "Awake, you who sleep." Now he's speaking to Christians. So obviously there were some people in the church in Ephesus that were spiritually sleeping, just like I'm sure there's some in our church. What does that mean? It means you're spiritually apathetic. There's other things that have taken the forefront, more interested in natural things than interested in the things of God. It happens to all of us some of the time. But sometimes it just captures our life, and we can say, Paul would say, you've fallen asleep, spiritually sleeping. "Awake, you who sleep, and arise from the dead, and Christ will give you light." Then he says something. This it's very coarse statement. He says, "So then, walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise." Now, he begins to describe what a fool is in a few moments. So a fool, he said, is someone who's wasting their life, wasting their time. A Christian who's wasting their time and wasting their life, Paul referred to them as a fool. He says, "See that you walk circumspectly, not as fools." Don't walk like a fool, but he says, "redeeming the time because the days are evil." If you haven't recognized the times that we live in are evil, they are, the volume, the intensity is turning up. We live in very hazardous, very dangerous times. You know, it's really strange. You can ask my wife this, but the day that we heard about this bomber, I told my wife, actually it was about 30 minutes before it happened, I told my wife, something is about to happen. A bomb's going to go off somewhere, and something's going to get blown up. And I thought it was going to be I said I thought it was going to be an atomic bomb somewhere is what I thought. And you know, to be honest with you, I'm surprised some nut job hasn't blown off a nuclear weapon somewhere yet. It's only the grace of God. It's only the restraining grace of God. His restraining hand has kept something horrendous from taking place. But before the Lord comes, those things will happen. They will happen. Now, why am I saying this to scare you? No, for us to recognize the seriousness of the times that we live in, and to live our lives accordingly. Look what he says here. He says, redeeming the time, buying back the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And then he says how to do it. Do not be drunk with wine, in which is dissipation. This is how you waste your life, by pursuing the affairs of this world. Drinking alcohol is just a picture. It's a picture of that other lifestyle. It's a picture of the worldly lifestyle. It's all it is. It's a picture of pursuing our pleasure in our life in the things of this world. He says, don't waste your time pursuing the sensual, natural pleasures of this life, he says, which is a waste, but be filled. Be filled. The literal says, be being filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, making melody in your heart to the Lord. So Paul says the way we keep from wasting our lives and wasting our time is by drinking in his presence. Now, I had a devotional, and this is what I want you to think about this. And then we're going to have a time of prayer and ministry, drinking. I read a devotional on December the 31st. Many of you have this devotional. It's called Morning by Morning by Charles Spurgeon. Excellent devotional. And December the 31st, the morning devotional was on John 7:37. If anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. And he had some interesting comments about this verse, different from the way I've looked at it in the past. And of course, he starts talking about Jesus and how he humbled himself to become a man. And not only humbled himself to become a man, but stood in the midst of the center of his religious system that he had established. God had established Judaism. He's the one that set up the law of Moses. He's the one that brought out the temple worship and all of that. And here he comes in the form of man and stands in the center of this worship of God that he had established. And he began to cry and beg people. He was begging people to come to him. What an incredible, humiliating thing. I mean, you don't even beg your wife for affection. You don't even beg your husband for affection or your children. But this God came in the form of a man begging us to come to him. If anyone is thirsty, it says he lifted his voice and he began to cry out. And the implication is crying out with passion for people to respond to his plea. If anyone is thirsty. And this is the part that struck me about Spurgeon's devotional. It'll do you good to go read it, dig it up. He said, he applied this as not talking about spiritual thirst. I always, and I think it means that. It's, if anyone's thirsty for God, come and drink. But he says it also means something else. He says it means people who are thirsting for the things of this world. If anyone is thirsty,